Hello, my name is Dr. Chad Miller. I'm with Attain Health Omaha. We're going to talk today a little bit about balancing your hormones, specifically female hormones, looking at them as specific as individually. So the person is individual, the hormone levels and how those hormone levels work with that individual are like fingerprints. They are specific to that person. So the key is to balance all of these, kind of like balancing these plates over here. We're trying to find levels that are appropriate for that person. They interplay off of each other, so we have to consider all of the hormones, including thyroid, adrenals, and we'll get into that a little bit. But the big player here is growth and repair. Those are the big functions of hormones, and if we lose that or we're out of balance, growth and repair kind of goes downhill. So estrogens are the big ones. Everybody's heard of these, and we know that we need to get an estrogen replacement you've heard about, but it can't be by itself. But the estrogens are big because almost all cells in the body have receptors for these hormones, and they play a huge role with brain health, insulin sensitivity. Again, they work with the thyroid, they help with sleep. They've got so many different functions, but again, they don't work in isolation. And to replace or add or work with only estrogens is a recipe to fail. So we have to also consider the progesterone, so kind of like a balance or a scale, sodium and potassium working together, calcium and magnesium working together, estrogen and progesterone work together very closely. Progesterone's big with breast health, digestion, your immune system, but for sure a sense of well-being and helps with some good sleep, so absolutely vital. So testosterone. Usually not as much of an emphasis on testosterone, but it's absolutely important. It helps with bone mass, muscle mass, decreasing excess body fat, for sure. Most have heard about helping with libido. But again, like progesterone helps with a sense of well-being, has almost an antidepressant effect, but helps with your skin, your memory, and pain control. All right. So we've kind of hit the main ones, and now we're talking about some of the outliers. And this isn't actually the outlier, it's actually the precursor. So dehydroepiandrosterone, or DHEA, is one of the precursors to some of your sex hormones. It's produced by the adrenal glands, brain, and skin, so it's not your sex organs producing this. So it will continue to produce this even after menopause, and very important. But it's the upstream guy, so it helps with, basically, by producing all of these sex hormones, helps with doing the jobs that those sex hormones do, precursor. So kind of giving you an idea of some of the hormone pathways. So here's DHEA. The other one most people don't look at much is cholesterol. Cholesterol is actually the initiator of your sex hormone pathways and your adrenal hormone pathways. So those of you on statins, you need to make sure that we're not getting too low. So you start getting into the low 100s, you start getting too low with your cholesterol. Guess what? You're not going to be producing these sex hormones or adrenal hormones like you should, and you're going to start to see breakdown there. So it's important to keep that balance from the top all the way down. So you can see these hormones as they're produced, and they work kind of downstream. There's actually an up and downstream. These guys will go back and forth. So you'll see testosterone being aromatized into estradiol or vice versa. You'll see these changes. You'll see testosterone working back and forth into DHT, which is the dihydrotestosterone. But we'll look at all of these, and we have to consider all of these. And it's not so simple as your estrogen is this number, we need to bump it up to this number. It just doesn't work that way. So we want to look at actually even the downstream metabolites. These 16s over here, been found or hypothesized that they are actually working and promote breast cancer, whereas the other ones, the twos, the HER2s, really don't seem to be as much of a problem. So it's actually kind of important, especially if we have a history of breast cancer, that we need to watch this, and then also see that not all estrogens are evil. If you have had a history or a family history of breast cancer, you still need your estrogen. So to kind of wipe that down is actually not a good plan. So again, long story long, we got to look at this whole picture. So insulin, we know how it helps with sugar and dealing with, Lucy's chocolates, but it counterbalances stress hormones, and you know about adrenaline, cortisol, but it also plays a major role in serotonin production. And serotonin production, most people think about brain and depression and antidepressants and all of that, but 80% of your serotonin is produced in your gut. So it has a huge role with gut function, and if your gut's on fire, your brain's on fire, and if your brain's on fire, you aren't producing your hormones like you should. So again, looking at the whole picture and making sure you're healthy. So adrenals, we talked about this before, but these guys are the guys that actually help to produce some of your sex hormones after the sex organs are no longer able to run the show, meaning menopause. So if the adrenals are functioning well and doing well, then you see a smoother transition from perimenopause into menopause. If the adrenals are pretty beat down, high stress, high sugar, bad diet, all that kind of stuff, then the adrenals aren't able to help out as much, and you see a sharper drop off as far as going from perimenopause to menopause, and usually the road isn't quite as smooth. So thyroid player with this whole thing, playing a big part with metabolism, as most people know. It's a little endocrine organ that's sitting right in front of your trachea, right above the notch of your sternum, and this guy also interplays with your sex hormones. And sex hormones actually interplay with the thyroid. So if we start to see imbalances with sex hormones, we can also see imbalances with what are called the binding globulins. And sex hormone binding globulins are one of them, but this is like your transporter bus that takes the proteins from where they're produced and takes them to the cell that uses them. Well, if we start to produce too much binding globulin, SHBG is what it's termed if you would do some blood testing, this will glom on to even thyroid hormones and prevent them from getting out. So these binding globulins can get sticky with too many of them and don't let the thyroid hormone go. Well, if we're not letting the thyroid hormone go, we could be producing plenty. You could be producing plenty of T4, which is the kind of the original guy, but then as you work downstream, you're not able to give that thyroid hormone into the cell. So binding globulins play a part, and these guys are playing back and forth. So hormone replacement therapy, big picture, they're all working together, and we have to look at the whole thing to achieve balance. So we prefer and use bioidentical hormone therapy at Attain Health Omaha. Just puzzle pieces fitting together, just work together, and it produces a balanced hormonal response. It's the same chemical structure as what we produce naturally, men and women. So we prefer the bioidentical approach. Seems to be a little better than the synthetic approach. Our view is kind of square peg, round hole here. It's lab created, synthetic, and it doesn't seem to produce that balanced hormonal response. Insurance companies love it because it's cheap. It's unfortunate, but that's what their focus is on, is the money, not the health. So when we're out of balance, things break down. So the priority is to look at the whole person, look at the balance of your hormones, sex hormones, thyroid hormones, adrenal hormones. Look at how these guys interplay, as well as looking at the rest of your body and looking at a whole person focus as opposed to just management of your symptoms. That's a traditional health model. Medical model is just to manage your symptoms and look at the number. That is not what you're going to get at Attain Health Omaha. So if you'd like to sit down and speak with one of our medical staff, be happy to. Tons of experience with hormones and hormone health. Our website is attainhealthomaha.com. You can give us a holler at 402-505-3210. All the best.